You see, Trump is a creature of the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. He wants to win the Nobel Prize like Mother Teresa. He wants to be on the cover of Time magazine, if anybody reads Time anymore. Similarly, he wants nuclear testing. Similarly, he wants to be shaking hands with the head of Russia. That is just as Reagan used to shake hands with Gorbachev, etc. His fantasy is shaking hands and making peace with the head of Russia, who he thinks is very important. Now, India does have to worry about China. China's plan is to double and then triple and quadruple its nuclear arsenal. China is ramping up in a big way. That's why China did not agree to nuclear arms limitation talk with the US. President Trump had also proposed nuclear arms limitation talk. Again, like in the manner of the 70s and 80s. Putin had been kind of dithering. Now, India's nuclear weapons are supposed to be sufficient for both Pakistan and China. But as you can see, Pakistan's nuclear weapons are equal to India's in number and size. So that means that China has an edge over India. And this edge is going to multiply many times over because China is really ramping up. So will India's nuclear weapons now be sufficient to take on both China and Pakistan? I doubt it because China is building such overwhelming strength. Do we have a threat? Yes, but what can we do about it? We don't have a GDP as large as China's. We can't spend that much money. So it's closely connected to what he's saying about India, Pakistan. Yesterday, he also said that for the nth time that I stopped their nuclear war. Now he's not even saying I stopped them fighting. He's saying this would have gone nuclear. He was indicating, and I stopped a nuclear war, which means I should get my Nobel. I mean, indirectly, I should get that Nobel. I deserve it. So there's a lot of nuclear talk, nuclear between India, Pakistan, nuclear testing in the United States. He's saying others are testing. Among the countries that are testing, he claimed, are North Korea, Pakistan, China, etc. For us, the worry remains, irrespective of nuclear testing. As I pointed out, that China is really ramping up its nuclear weapons acquisition. China wants to enter the big league. Right now, the big league had only two powers, the United States and Russia, and all the others were much smaller. That is, France, UK, China, they were much smaller. And then smaller than them were India, Pakistan, and even smaller was probably Israel. People think Israel has between 100 and 200 nuclear weapons. India and Pakistan are around 180.
Hello and a warm welcome to HW News Network, your one stop show, truth be told, for some engaging and thought provoking conversations. Donald Trump keeps dropping bombs, and in this case, it's nuclear. After 33 years of a moratorium on nuclear testing, United States President Donald Trump announced last Thursday that he had instructed the Department of War, earlier known as the Department of Defense, to immediately restart testing of nuclear weapons. To justify his decision, the American leader pointed at Russia and China, saying that while the US has more nuclear weapons than any other country, China will be even within 5 years. Now, Trump's remarks on nuclear testing have stirred confusion as he refuses to clarify if he means that whether America would be carrying out actual underground nuclear tests, which were common during the Cold War. Now, Donald Trump was giving an interview to the CBS TV channel in a program called 60 Minutes, where he also claimed that China and Pakistan, in fact, are both nuclear testing, and this could be a warning bell for India. He again repeated and reiterated his claims on Operation Sindoor that the two nations, that is India and Pakistan, were about to conduct the nuclear test, but he mediated at the last moment, and that's how things were salvaged. Now, we'll try and make of this whole situation, these tall claims made by Donald Trump. What does it mean? First, his claims on nuclear test. Then, if China and Pakistan are coming together on nuclear testing, what does it mean for India and Prime Minister Modi? So, we'll try and understand all of this. Joining me this evening is international affairs expert and commentator Mohsin Raza Khan. Thank you so much, Mohsin, for joining. So, Mohsin, my first question to you is that how do we make of Donald Trump's claims on nuclear testing and the very fact that he said that India and China have joined hands, they will do nuclear testing? Now, what does it mean for India and Prime Minister Modi? Is it not a warning bell for India?
I don't think it's such a warning bell. Trump's testing. You see, Trump is a creature of the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. He wants to win the Nobel Prize like Mother Teresa. He wants to be on the cover of Time magazine, if anybody reads Time anymore. Similarly, he wants nuclear testing. Similarly, he wants to be shaking hands with the head of Russia. That is just as Reagan used to shake hands with Gorbachev, etc. His fantasy is shaking hands and making peace with the head of Russia, who he thinks is a very important person. Whereas we know that Russia's economy is smaller than the New York metropolitan area. That is about 2.2 trillion. Now, among these fantasies of his is to renew nuclear testing. He thinks, that's what makes a nation great. We know that the last major power to have a nuclear test was in 1992. P5 have not had a test after 1992. And the only countries that have had nuclear tests after that are India, Pakistan, and North Korea. And these are largely large. These are hardly large nuclear powers. Now, India does have to worry about China. China's plan is to double and then triple and quadruple its nuclear arsenal. China is ramping up in a big way. That's why China did not agree to nuclear arms limitation talks with the US. President Trump had also proposed nuclear arms limitation talks. Again, like in the manner of the 70s and 80s. Putin had been kind of dithering. He wanted some other things to be put in place before he did that. China rejected it outright because China said that, look, you have, that is, the US and the Soviet Union, the Russians, have 10 times the nuclear warheads that China has. So China wants to build up its nuclear arsenal and then have arms limitation talks. China is really ramping up, but that means it's spending a lot of money. This requires hundreds of billions of dollars. Now, even maintaining a nuclear arsenal requires tens of billions of dollars every year. So the US spends that money, and hence the US can maintain a very large nuclear arsenal with thousands of nuclear weapons. China is ramping up, and it will soon also have large number of nuclear weapons. Currently, India is supposed to have somewhere around 180 nuclear warheads, similar to what Pakistan has, around 180 nuclear warheads. It doesn't appear that either of them are increasing at a very fast pace. But yeah, India needs to worry if China is really ramping up, because that means China will have a lot more nuclear warheads to spare.
No, but how will India, prepare itself? Because you remember during the Operation Sindoor, there were already stories done, and we had done a discussion also at that time that how China was helping Pakistan during Operation Sindoor with air defense systems. Though there was no official confirmation from the Indian side, but there were a couple of stories which were done by the global news platforms like Telegraph and elsewhere. British Telegraph had done a story, and several other platforms had done the story. So, if both countries join hands in nuclear testing, what does it mean for India? How will India ramp up its efforts against both these nations then?
Well, it's not clear that these countries are going to join hands in nuclear testing. Uh, has Pakistan gotten help in the past from China? Sure, in its nuclear weapons program. But we got help too from the Soviet Union. So it's not as if we didn't get any help. Now, India's nuclear weapons are uh, supposed to be sufficient for both Pakistan and China. But as you can see, Pakistan's nuclear weapons are equal to India's in number and size. So that means that China has an edge over India. And this edge is going to multiply many times over because China is really ramping up. So, will India's nuclear weapons now be sufficient to take on both China and Pakistan? I doubt it, because China is building such overwhelming strength. Uh, do do we have a threat? Yes, but what can we do about it? We don't have a GDP as large as China's. We can't spend that much money. China is going to be spending hundreds of billions of dollars over the coming decade or 2 decades on its nuclear weapons program. It wants to join the US and Russia.
But how serious do you think is Donald Trump about nuclear testing? Because I mean, the kind of interview which he has given to CBS's 60 Minutes, and in which he was
Yeah.
asked particularly about his decision on nuclear testing, and then he responded, and I'm going to quote what exactly he said. He said that we have more nuclear weapons than any other country. Russia second, China's a very distant third, but they'll be even in 5 years. You know, they are making them rapidly, and I think we should do something about denuclearization, which is going to be some. And I did actually discuss that with both President Putin and President Xi. Denuclearizations is a very big thing. We have enough nuclear weapons to blow up the world 150 times. Russia has a lot of nuclear weapons, and China will have a lot. They have some. This is what he said. And when he was pressed on asking on why testing was required, he said that because you have to see how they work, you know, you do have to. And the reason I'm saying testing is because Russia announced that they were going to be doing a test. If you notice, North Korea is testing constantly, other countries are testing. We are the only country that doesn't test. And I don't want to be the only country that doesn't test. Now, if Donald Trump is making this so explicit, so does it mean that America also begins to nuke test?
What you have asked is $1 million question, Gilu, because the information that's coming out, for example, today in the New York Times, Chris reported that Chris Wrights, that is the U.S. Energy
Yes.
Secretary, nuclear weapons in the U.S. come under the Energy Secretary, not under the Minister of Defense, not under the Secretary of Defense. Chris Wrights has said that we are not going to be exploding nuclear weapons. There'll be no nuclear explosions. We'll be testing other parts, whatever that means, other parts of the nuclear bomb. That is probably the trigger mechanism, or they'll be doing simulated computer testing, etc. The assembly, maybe they'll be testing the assembly of the nuclear. So there are no plans to have explosions, and
No, but even
the
rights is not very clear because he's talking about a systems test. What exactly he's been saying
assist,
is that I think that the tests we are talking about right now are systems tests. And these are
I'll
not
just go ahead.
nuclear explosions.
No, I'll just explain. Yeah, so he's saying he's quite clear that there are no nuclear explosions planned. It's only going to be systems testing, which means non-nuclear, other parts of the nuclear weapon, and all the experts who are in charge of nuclear weapons say it's not required. We are constantly testing. We don't need to actually explode. Our arsenal is fine. It's in good form. It's in good shape. So, and also the Democrats are not in favor. So, uh, most likely there will be no nuclear explosion on the part of the US. It's not required, and it doesn't seem like China and Russia are also doing any. So, but as you pointed out, that because he's so insistent in that CBS interview, and it seems also on the flight, sometimes when he's insistent, it doesn't end up with much. Sometimes it's people are
Yeah.
able to convince him, and we've seen that. But sometimes when he's so insistent, he does overrule his advisors. So I don't know what is going to happen in this instance. If he's so insistent, if he so wants to go back to the 1970s and 80s Cold War, and if he really wants to also use that to build up his image at home towards his constituency, domestic or internationally, his power, he could force his employees. It's about $150 million. The experts are saying it will cost about $150 million roughly per test for nuclear
No,
explosion.
but if you look at the tone and tenor of Donald Trump, he's been very vague even when he's talking about nuclear testing. He himself doesn't know whether he wants to go in for nuclear explosions or nuclear tests. He does know that the kind of comprehensive the comprehensive ban treaty which is there in place. There are international monitoring systems which are there, which are monitoring all this. But despite all of that, he's saying this. So is it like a new red herring after the tariffs? Like one was, of course, the tariffs. It still continues, and here he's dropped a new nuclear bomb, and that is what he claimed in the interview.
So Neelu, I think he's very clear in his mind. He wants a nuclear explosion. Actually, from what he's been saying on the aircraft, on CBS, etc., he's very keen. He really wants it. He's like a child who wants that lollipop, and he damn well will get it. Nobody can stop him. The experts are saying it's not required and we are not going to do it. But the experts are his reportees. That is, they report to him. He's the boss. The buck stops at the White House, at the Oval Office. So I think if he's going to be more insistent, we'll find out in the next few weeks. If he continues to be insistent, they will have to do a nuclear weapons test. He can burn through cash like fire. If it's 150 million, he doesn't care. Even if it was 150 billion, Donald Trump doesn't care. So 150 million is not too much. He can have a couple of fireworks. If he can have Diwali here, he can have his there. So I don't know what's going to happen exactly. Uh, Sometimes, as I said in the past, when he's been insistent, he's able to get his way, and sometimes not. Sometimes, so I don't know what's going to happen. But yes, you're right. It's uh, the New York Times and everybody seems to be reporting that it's not going to happen, etc. And the experts don't think it's necessary. But once an idea gets into Donald Trump's head, you can't. And it's closely connected to what he's saying about India, Pakistan, all that. Remember, yesterday he also said that for the nth time that I stopped their nuclear war. Now he's not even saying I stopped them fighting. He's saying this would have gone nuclear. He was indicating, and I stopped a nuclear war, which means I should get my Nobel. I mean, indirectly, I should get that Nobel. I deserve it. So there's a lot of nuclear talk, nuclear between India, Pakistan, nuclear testing in the United States. He's saying others are testing. Among the countries that are testing, he claims, are North Korea, Pakistan, China, etc., Russia.
But there is a big if whether America will do a nuclear test or not. But if it does, uh, are these dangerous signals for India? And also, if Pakistan and China, as what Donald Trump has claimed, that they might come together and they might do nuclear testing, are there reasons to worry for India? India is already struggling to battle out the tariffs, and here there's another headache.
I could make out from his statements that he's claiming that China and Pakistan are going to come together to do nuclear testing. But even without that, we have worries. Even if the US does a nuclear test, it's not a big worry for India because we are not a direct enemy of the United States. For us, the worry remains, irrespective of nuclear testing. As I pointed out, that China is really ramping up its nuclear weapons acquisition. China wants to enter the big league. Right now, the big league had only two powers, the United States and Russia, and all the others were much smaller. That is, France, UK, China, they were much smaller. And then smaller than them were India, Pakistan, and even smaller was probably Israel. People think Israel has between 100 and 200 nuclear weapons. India and Pakistan are around 180, and China is supposed to
No,
have a
but
couple
he's
of hundred.
also spoken, he's basically spoken about the discrete nuclear testing, which is done by countries like Pakistan. Pakistan, of course, is one of the country which does it discreetly. Then he's named China, then he's named Russia, then North Korea, that they have been secretly doing nuclear testing. So this is what exactly he said. So if uh, China and Pakistan, I mean, if they are independently and secretly doing these kind of nuclear tests, then does it become a dangerous signal for India?
If they were doing tests, yeah, it could be a bit dangerous for India. But I don't think they're doing any tests. As you pointed out, the CTBTO organization, that is the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty Organization, has an international monitoring system which monitors tests in the air, under the sea, and as well as on land. And it's fairly accurate. It's 97% accurate. They haven't detected any such activity.
No, and
So if they
also, like, this is this not a revelation, because he's talking on record in an interview to CBS saying that many nations are doing it discreetly. So there are questions on what the international monitoring systems are doing. Is the treaty being violated? An American president saying this, how significant does it get then?
it's not clear whether he's claiming that they are doing nuclear explosions or they're doing systems tests of their nuclear systems, which we just discussed. That is, without a nuclear explosion, they're testing maybe the trigger mechanism, they're testing
Yeah.
maybe the assembly, the bomb assembly, maybe they're doing computer simulated testing, or he means that they're actually exploding weapons. It doesn't appear that they're actually exploding weapons because they don't need to. They have so much data. Russia has exploded thousands of nuclear weapons, at least hundreds of nuclear weapons. China has exploded dozens of them. They don't need, even a small country like North Korea has had almost a dozen, 10 or 8 or 9 nuclear tests. So they don't need more data. Even India, Pakistan have had like 5, 6 each nuclear test. So we have the data. We don't need to do more. In fact, doing more will cost us a lot because when you do a test, you burn up a lot of uranium and plutonium. So it's very costly. Even for the US, it's $150 million a test. It was a nuclear explosion. So I don't think they're doing it. None of the US agencies are saying, because the first person who would reveal to us would be the US monitoring agencies, CIA, etc.
Yes.
International
No,
monitoring agencies.
but why do you think Donald Trump spoke about this, and floated this narrative about the nuclear testing? Why did he do that? Or he's
So
wanting to bring in a new narrative through something, because all this was tariff diplomacy, and now comes in the new talk on nuclear testing.
it could be for multiple reasons. People are speculating. One could be he likes to be in the news. You know, he has a knack for it. He is a reality television star for a reason. He was the
Hmm.
best on reality. He knew how to keep the attention. Second reason could be that he announced it just before the negotiation with China, just before he was about to meet Xi Jinping, like a few hours before. It was maybe a kind of way of putting them also on notice and under pressure, maybe. But since he's continuing this kind of talk, I thought it was a one-off. But since he's continuing this kind of talk, it's not clear whether it was just aimed at China. It seems like he's telling not just China, because he knows that China is building nuclear weapons, so he's signaling maybe something to China as well. But he's also signaling something to North Korea. He's signaling to.
Right. But if you talk from India's point of view, and if this is true, what Donald Trump is claiming about Pakistan and China both doing nuclear tests or doing nuclear explosions, or whether they are doing it discreetly, uh, isn't it not a battle now which India will have to fight on two fronts? I mean, already India is struggling with a lot of problems. And here again, this is a new challenge now, and which India will have to fight on two fronts. One is Pakistan, and the other one is China.
See, we are anyway in this sandwich position. We have a two-front problem, and our military has known this now for a while. Our political establishment also knows it. We are in a two-front situation, and there is very close collusion between these two countries. That is, they provide each other weapons, intelligence, training, systems, online, cyber, whatever. So there's a lot of collusion between these two countries, and uh, what is the extent on nuclear is not clear. But as I said, even irrespective of that, Pakistan has almost equal nuclear weapons to that of India, the stockpile, warhead. And so whatever China builds is extra. We don't know how we are going to match that. Anyway, China was like, I don't know, 400 to 500 nuclear weapons. Now it's going to zoom up into thousands. So it's not clear how we are going to match that because it's so expensive. Even just building this 200 nuclear weapon took us billions and billions, tens of billions of dollars. So, our total defense budget, including all the salaries paid for our soldiers and officers, is $78 billion.
No, but
So any
if you look at the articles which are written all across about what Donald Trump has said in the CBS interview, everybody has started, coming out with numbers that which country owns how many stockpiles. Say, for example, India about 180. Then you have Pakistan, which has about 170 stockpiles, and which by 2028 will reach 200. Then, if you talk about the tactical nukes, then China has a stockpile of 600, and by 2030 it will reach 1,000. So just by the very proclamation of Donald Trump, do you think that there could begin a new nuclear race amongst the nations? Or does he want the nations to start a nuclear race?
That's a very good point. Does he want to start? See, there is no need for US to start any race because US already has so many nuclear weapons that you don't need to produce more. How many times will you destroy the world?
No,
There's
but they haven't tested it for like more than 33 years. In fact, India also has signed a no first use policy. So in that scenario, if a new nuclear race begins, then what will happen to these nations?
But the US has tested nuclear weapons for decades, for like 4 or 5 decades. They have all that data, and they keep doing simulated tests on online, etc. So they don't need to. But the good point that you made was that, is he doing it in order to push others into a nuclear race? That is, for pushing others to spend money. That's a very interesting question. because it's going to cost China anyway a lot of money to build up its nuclear arsenal. Is he pushing the rest also? Because Russia is nearly bankrupt right now. Pushing a bankrupt Russia towards building more nuclear weapons? Is he pushing North Korea, India, Pakistan towards building more? And we don't have as much money as the US has. We don't have as much money even as China has. So pushing us could bankrupt us. We have to be careful
Yeah.
and try to keep up with the Joneses. We might end up going bankrupt.
Right. And my last question to you, Mohsin, is of course his repeated claims about Operation Sindoor. And once again, I think it's for the 58th time again today, he said that he was the one to mediate between India and Pakistan. Otherwise, they were on the brink of a nuclear war. What is he still trying to say amidst his entire talk about the nuclear explosions and he wants to start the nuclear testing? He again, once again, brings in India and Pakistan and the Operation Sindoor.
Yeah, I think this has become now like a real problem for the government now. He's repeated this for the like 50th or I don't know 100th time, and now what's happening is that how is Modi going to meet him next time? My fear is that the next time Prime Minister meets him, he's going to again start off on this because he seems like he's an unstoppable bull at this point. He just won't stop. So I have a feeling that maybe Prime Minister is avoiding him for one good reason. Apart from the fact that he's going to pressure India on trade, he's going to probably pressure the
Absolutely.
Prime Minister. And so I think he's now. I don't think the Prime Minister can go to an international fora, an international meeting, where Donald Trump is present anymore. Even at the G7, if you noticed, he missed him. He, the timing was such that they were not there
Yes.
together in Canada. And then now again in the ASEAN where he was
The
there,
ASEAN also. Yes.
Prime Minister avoided him. So then Trump had invited him from Canada to come down to DC to meet him. He avoided having lunch. So I think how long can the Prime Minister do this game? Seems
In
like at
fact,
some point.
that's a $1 million question that will Prime Minister Modi keep avoiding those trips where he might have a truck with Donald Trump is something to watch out. But Donald Trump's claims about nuclear war or nuclear testing or nuclear explosions is something very, very interesting. Though White House is trying to dilute it a little, but one doesn't know Donald Trump because he's always unpredictable. And the kind of claims he made in the CBS interview also make you think. I think you want to say something.
No, just I just want to repeat that point. That
Okay.
when Donald Trump is insistent, it's
Yeah.
difficult to dissuade. So it could happen. We can't completely rule out nuclear testing.
Right. So who knows? After this tariff diplomacy, the new would be a nuclear bomb. We don't know that, but we'll have to end it here. Thank you so much, Mohsin, for joining on HW News. Thank you.